You're listening to Informed America Radio, pushing back the frontiers of ignorance 24/7. Now, the Teri O'Brien Show.
May I have your attention, please?
Here we go. Y'all ready?
It's not about being right in the ideological sense of the word. It's about committing common sense every single day. It's politics, it's pop culture, and it's the news of the day, both serious stuff and the water cooler stuff. I've never seen such a bunch of petty, bitter, mean-spirited, vindictive people. And I'm really glad, Democrats, I'm really glad that all the problems, all the serious problems in our country are solved now. And we can focus on being vindictive over this guy who's going to be ambassador to Belgium. That's like the most important problem we have facing our country right now. Way to go, Democrats. This is what I'm saying. My work is never done. We don't need to investigate the motive. As sad as this is, when you put on the red suspenders.
Put on a uniform.
Yeah,
man.
You put on the big shoes, you put on the white face and the red nose and the red makeup, the wig, that crazy looking wig, and you go out there and flop around with the big shoes. I'm sorry, I don't want to see anybody hurt, but I have to say, you're an intimidating and frightening presence in the community at that point. And some might say that without even knowing it, you're actually asking for it because you are dressed up as a clown. One thing we always say is the Second Amendment is not about hunting. The Second Amendment is about the right to keep and bear arms to prevent the government from becoming tyrannical. That's what it's about. It's not about being able to go out and shoot bunny rabbits.
Ooh, what a girl. She's always in a whirl.
Always going new places, seeing new faces. That girl on the go.
Teri O'Brien.
Wonderful girl on the go.
Hey. Welcome to this January 10th, 2016 edition of the Teri O'Brien Show. Yes, I am back, sort of. I am broadcasting today from an annex of the bunker, not my actual studio, but I would call this a studio infirmary, where I am, as you know, recovering from a recent encounter with the healthcare system, which I told you guys about 2 weeks ago, and as it turned out, it ended up being more complicated than we thought it would be prior to the procedure. But the great news is, of course, when you have one of these procedures, you have no idea what is going on until you wake up hours later, usually in a lot of pain, but with a lot of drugs to make it bearable. And yeah, I made good friends with my morphine pump and that night I had to spend in the hospital. So thanks to all of you for your thoughts, prayers, all that good stuff. We have a lot to talk about today. Of course, we've got a big Second Amendment update coming up on the program. And also, we want to talk about the refugee situation, which we have been talking about for months here on this program. And last week, we had 2 refugees who are in the country legally arrested for terrorist activity. So we'll get into talking about this. Yeah, we'll probably talk a little bit about Sean Penn. How can we not? But first, I want to talk about an issue that I have been talking about for many years. In fact, I posted today at teriobrien.com, and that's TERIOBRIEN, which you guys need to be visiting every day, because even as I have been recovering from my recent encounter with the healthcare system, I have been posting there regularly, and the show never ends there. And that's also where, of course, I always ask you to start your Amazon shopping, because if you do that, that helps us keep the lights on here. And I can't let that comment pass without giving a shout out to all of you who have been so generous and kind to donate to help us keep the lights on by going to teriobrien.com, either making a monthly gift to the program, which, helps support our community organizing, or making a one-time contribution in the tip jar. And you can go there. They're in the right sidebar, right at the top. You'll see the donate and subscribe buttons. So that's all good. Anyway, where was I? Believe me, I'm not on any drugs now. It probably would have been better if I had been. But anyway, Natural Born Citizen, yes. So at TeriO'Brien.com today, I posted actually a flashback to something that I wrote in December of 2010, December 27th, 2010, talking about the issue of whether or not Barack Obama is an Article 2 natural-born citizen. Now, those of you who have listened to this program for a while, gone to TeriO'Brien.com, read my columns at Illinois Review, the terrific Illinois Review, and Clash Daily, and other places where I scribble, know that I have a very punctilious, and I would say rigorous, if you don't know what punctilious means, definition of what is an Article 2 natural-born citizen. And I'll come right out and say, as I've said many times before, Ted Cruz does not qualify under my definition. Neither does Barack Obama, neither does Marco Rubio, neither does Bobby Jindal, Nikki Haley, because the most rigorous example, I don't want to say example, the most rigorous definition of natural-born citizen requires both what we call birth and soil. What is birth? Well, birth means you're the child of 2 American citizens at the time of your birth. And all the people that I mentioned there, Ted Cruz, Barack Obama, Bobby Jindal, we can go down the list, they were born with at least one parent who was not an American citizen at the time of their birth. And the other thing is being born on American soil. Now, when this issue was raised regarding Barack Obama, as you guys well know, because we've been over this terrain many times, the folks in the Obama camp resorted to what they always resort to, their Alinskyite tactics, attempting to portray people like me who accept a very strict definition of Article 2 and conflate us with people that were so-called birthers. What were the birthers? The birthers are the people who claim Barack Obama was not born in the United States, not born in Hawaii. I'll go on the record now and say I don't really know where he was born. I can accept he was born in Hawaii, although until 2007, he did put out promotional materials for his book that said he was born in Kenya. And that was, of course, to create this exotic international man of mystery persona. You know, he had the African name and the mixed race, and he's lived all over the world. He's a citizen of the world, you know, that whole thing, when they were trying to sell books. And suddenly in 2007, when he started running for president, that was out the window. And the publisher said, oh yeah, that was just an oversight. Yeah, I'm sure. I can tell you as an author who's been published by mainstream publishers, they show you the promotional materials that they're using, and you have a right to object, or correct at least. So, I mean, that was never true. But let's leave that aside. Let's say, okay, we'll just accept, we'll stipulate he's born in Hawaii. But his father was not an American citizen. And therefore, I didn't care if he was born in the Capitol Rotunda. Didn't matter to me. He's not an Article 2 natural-born citizen, as I've said many times. That phrase, natural-born citizen, is not the same as citizen. It's used in only one place in the Constitution, and that is in Article 2. That's the only place it's used. Now, that can't be a coincidence. And I believe that the founders understood that birth and soil were both essential, as did the legal philosopher at the time that many of them followed, Mr. Vattel, wrote about the natural-born citizens being the children born on American soil of citizens. So that's point one. I have a very strict definition. And point two is, I don't think it makes any difference as a practical matter at this point. As I've said many times, I think that ship has sailed. I think as soon as people were willing to accept Barack Obama as president of the United States, even though he didn't meet that strict definition of natural-born citizen, that means game over. as far as a practical political matter. And you got to understand that the founders constructed a system in which people in this country will get what they want. And if the population is either so dumbed down about the Constitution or basically so indifferent that they are willing to overlook the requirements of the Constitution, the system will allow that, and no one is going to intervene. Certainly, courts don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole because it falls under what they call a political question. And just so, it is. So therefore, I don't think that Donald Trump is correct when he says, well, the Democrats are going to sue. Well, so what? There were a gazillion lawsuits against Barack Obama's eligibility. Some of them might still be going on. I think all of them have been dismissed at this point. There was a challenge to McCain's eligibility, which many of you may not remember. But there was. I'm looking at this article from the Liberal Death Star from July 2008. And by the way, as I mentioned, this article, remember, all the articles we talk about on the Teri O'Brien Show are linked at terryobrien.com. We post show notes, and you can go there. So you don't have to look up any of this stuff. All the articles will be there. But this is a story by Adam Liptak, who happens to be, he's a legal correspondent. A hint of a new life to a McCain birth issue. And this talks about the work of a University of Arizona law professor named Gabriel Chin, who says that McCain's birth in 1936 in the Panama Canal Zone, nor the fact that his parents were American citizens, is enough to satisfy the constitutional requirement that the president must be a natural-born citizen. Now, the Senate, as you probably recall, in April of 2008, passed a non-binding resolution declaring McCain eligible. They never said anything about Obama because, and once again, nothing Obama said or did was going to be challenged, right, for obvious reasons, race card. But anyway, so that was an issue in 2008. People litigated it. And so, when Donald Trump says, well, Ted Cruz is going to have to be fighting these lawsuits, I don't consider that a big thing. So that's not something that I think should be a barrier to Ted Cruz. Because as I say, my opinion about natural-born citizen, nobody seems to agree. Well, no, I won't say nobody agrees with me. Here's some people who agree with me. I know a lot of you agree with me because I've heard from you. Ann Coulter agrees with me. She's been vilified for that. And, a number of the people that we've had on the program, Van Arian, who's an attorney in Georgia, who sued Mario Apuzzo, another attorney in New Jersey who was on the program. He agrees with me. But once again, this is a legalistic, constitutional issue, which, to me makes it really important. But to the average voter, it's not even on the radar screen, and it's not going to make any difference. So I think Trump is incorrect when he says that that's going to make any difference. Oh, you know who else agrees with me? I don't necessarily think I'm proud of this, but Geraldo Rivera. Yeah, he was on Hannity last week talking about how he told his son and daughter-in-law when she was expecting a child to be sure to get home and have that child born on American soil. So people who don't agree with me, my good friend and frequent Teri O'Brien Show guest, Andy McCarthy, he doesn't agree with me at all. I'm looking at a piece here by him dated January 6th of this year entitled Ted Cruz, Natural Born Citizen. Senator Ted Cruz, Natural Born Citizen. Senator Ted Cruz, writes Andy McCarthy in National Review, is wise to laugh off Donald Trump's intimation that his constitutional qualifications to serve as president may be debatable. And the suggestion is sufficiently frivolous that even Trump, who is apt to utter most anything that pops into his head, stops short of claiming that Cruz is not a, quote, natural-born citizen, the Constitution's requirement. Trump is merely saying that because Cruz was born in Canada of an American citizen mother and a Cuban father who had been a longtime resident of the U.S., some political opponents might file lawsuits that could spur years of litigation over Cruz's eligibility. And he goes on to say, so what? He also discloses, my friend Andrew McCarthy here, that he supports Ted Cruz. So Andy says a natural-born citizen is a person who has citizenship status at birth rather than as a result of a legal naturalization process after birth. As I explained in Faithless Execution, and that's Andy's book about impeaching Obama, in connection with the term high crimes and misdemeanors, the meaning of many terms of art used in the Constitution was informed by British law, with which the framers were intimately familiar. Natural-born citizen is no exception. In a 2015 Harvard Law Review article on the meaning of natural-born citizen, Neil Katyal and Paul Clement, former Solicitor General in respectively the Obama and George W. Bush administrations, explain that British law explicitly used the term natural-born, and that's in quotes, to describe children who were born outside the British Empire to parents who were subject of the Crown. Such children were deemed British by birth, subjects to all intents, constructions, and purposes whatsoever. So, Andrew McCarthy believes that Ted Cruz is eligible, and he's supporting him. Mark Levin, also another constitutional scholar. Another guy who's also been a guest on our show, Professor William Jacobson of Legal Insurrection, an excellent blog. He also believes that Ted Cruz and people similarly situated are eligible. So therefore, I once again say, as a practical matter, none of this makes any difference. Now, finally, I will say, though, and I think it's a little disappointing to hear Mark Levin and Carly Fiorina and a lot of other people say that citizenship and natural-born citizenship are the same thing. As I said earlier, when you conflate those two things, you are just smacking the founders up the side of the head because they use this natural-born citizen phrase in one place only. The other thing, though, that is really disappointing is to hear Ted Cruz, who I have enormous respect for and who I may end up supporting. I mean, I'm kind of on the fence right now. He's one of the people I'm seriously considering. I haven't endorsed anybody, but it's extremely disappointing to hear him and a lot of other people, I would say most of the ignoramuses who write about this in the media, suggest that, this is completely settled. This whole natural-born citizen thing, that's completely settled law. No, it really isn't. And no lesser a liberal legal light than Lawrence Tribe of Harvard, who was a professor of both Ted Cruz and who else did he teach? Virtually everybody's been there like 1,000 years, but he was Ted Cruz's professor. And I mean, it's clear it's not settled. The Supreme Court has never settled it. Now, that's as a legal matter. Once again, as a practical matter, it is settled. Now I'll ask all of you, and you guys tell me in the Live and Lively chat room if you're in there. And if you're listening between 5 and 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and it is Sunday, January 10th, 2016, then you can join us in the Live and Lively chat room and tell me there, does it matter if Ted Cruz is an Article 2 natural-born citizen? Do you believe he is? Do you agree with Andrew McCarthy and Mark Levin and William Jacobson, a number of other folks? Do you agree with me? I will say that Lawrence Tribe, who says it is not settled, says he thinks that Ted Cruz is a natural-born citizen. That's just his opinion, one man's opinion. But once again, it's never settled. If you're listening on demand, by the way, and you want to weigh in on this, go to TeriO'Brien.com and make a comment there in the post that I have about this issue, dated today. It's entitled Flashback, What is an Article 2 Natural-Born Citizen? And if you go there, you can make a comment and tell me, what do you think? And do you think he is? And do you care? Does it matter? And do you agree with me that it's not going to matter as a practical matter? Because I think, all the Sunday shows wanted to talk about this challenge. Ted Cruz saying it's settled law. That was disappointing. But he has to say that because he can't concede any daylight between the fact that he is eligible and he's not eligible because, that could be very bad for business. And according to a lot of the polls, and according to this 538 site that has been very accurate in predicting, they say that in Iowa, he is up 44-41 against Trump. Rubio has 20. So it's looking like Ted Cruz is going to win Iowa. And if he concedes that possibly he's not eligible, and people will say, like, well, I don't want to vote for this guy. He's not even eligible. So he can't concede that. But I think he knows very well it's not settled as a legal issue. As a political issue, it is. It was settled in 2008 by the election of Barack Obama. Okay, we have a Second Amendment update coming up. I also want to talk about Hillary Clinton. A lot of buzz this week all about, once again, Donald Trump bringing up the fact that he's not going to allow Hillary to masquerade as a defender of women and women's rights when she is a woman who led the charge to bully, intimidate, and smear any woman who came forward and complained about Bill's sexual harassment or even rape. And an unlikely place, an unlikely source, a place I never thought I would tell you guys you should go read, is talking about, they've written about the rape allegation against Bill Clinton, and they've explained it. It's a lengthy piece on a site that I don't usually recommend, but I'm going to share some of this with you. So we got that. We got a Second Amendment update. And just how many foreign-born individuals have been engaged in terrorism on American soil since 2014. I told you about the 2 that were arrested last week. They were legally in the U.S. as refugees. We know about the asylum grantees, the Tsarnaevs. We know about a lot of other folks. And do you consider it somewhat ironic and a little bit stupid, in fact, that Bill Clinton, I'm sorry, I'm conflating Bill Clinton with Barack Obama. I didn't mean to do that. Easy to do, though. That Barack Obama was up on his soapbox the other day doing the fake crying, talking about wanting to make everyone safe, when he has open borders and wants to import more potential Tashfeen Maliks into this country, and he's talking about how he wants to make the children safe. What's wrong with this picture? I've got a lot of other questions about this latest gun grab thing, too, so we'll get into that. I don't know. Maybe Sean Penn. Oh, my God, what an embarrassment. All that and more here on this January 10th, 2016 edition of The Teri O'Brien Show. I will be right back.
This week's episode, Trouble on Rock Hill.
Ain't nothing like running up and down Rock Hill.
Hey, let's move this rock.
Whoa! Sassy, Johnny's stuck under that rock. Yeah, girl, go tell Mr. Gunderson to bring his truck. You'll tell him, but only after you dispel a stereotype associated with shelter pets? People think shelter pets come with lots of initial veterinary costs?
It's dusty under here.
But in reality, most shelter pets have been vaccinated, neutered, and microchipped in case they get lost?
My pants ripped.
Sassy, Johnny needs help. What Johnny really needs is more discipline and better parental supervision? You use big words, Sassy.
Still under the rock.
Sassy is brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org. Remember, adopt.
They came from every corner of the country. From small towns and big cities. But they all shared one thing in common. They belonged to a family called Marines. tough and determined few, dedicated to protecting everything we hold sacred. And still, they come. Celebrate the history of those proud few who have earned the title Marine.
So, I'm a dog, and I just got adopted by this new human guy, and I'm starting to wonder how he got along without me. I mean, okay, something as simple as walking around the block. He's got this leash thing, and he puts me on one end and him on the other, and I'm just taking him around. I think he's afraid of getting lost. Without that leash and me guiding him along, I don't think he'd find his way back home. But it's kind of cute.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
The leftist liberal agenda.
I think the vast majority of liberals are well-intentioned but misguided. They're like children who have the luxury of believing in the political equivalent of the tooth fairy. They need some tough love. They need a big old healthy dose of information and common sense. And after they get it, the smart ones will become conservative.
It is said that Castro was making a speech to a large assembly. And he was going on at great length, and then a voice out in the crowd said, peanuts, popcorn, Cracker Jack. And he went on speaking. And again the voice said, peanuts, popcorn, Cracker Jack. And about the fourth time this happened, he stopped in his regular speech. And he said, the next time he says that, he says, I'm going to find out who he is and kick him all the way to Miami. And everybody in the crowd said, peanuts, popcorn, Cracker Jack.
At highway speeds, the average text takes your eyes off the road for about 5 seconds. That's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop texts, stopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
We all know Goodwill. But did you know when you donate stuff to Goodwill, you help provide job training for people right here in your community? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Informed America Radio. Do you want to help the Teri O'Brien Show stay on the air? It's simple. Just start your Amazon.com shopping at TeriO'Brien.com by clicking on the Amazon Gold Box Editors Picks banner at the top of the page. That's TeriO'Brien.com. Then the show will get a small percentage of what you spend at no additional cost to you. It's a win-win. Teri, producer Thomas, and the K9 associate producers thank you very much. Nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. Martin Luther King. You're listening to Informed America Radio.
The voice of American conservatism. WRS Digital, Red State Talk Radio.
Broadcasting from a secured bunker in an undisclosed location in flyover country, outside the East Coast bubble and far from left coast insanity. You're listening to America's original warrior princess, Teri O'Brien.
Learn more at TeriO'Brien.com.
Ready for more hot girl on government action? The Teri O'Brien Show.
Yes! 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 Yes!
Live in vivid red, white, and blue.
Every Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. Central Time.
Or on demand, anytime, at TeriO'Brien.com.
Say that all rape victims should be believed, but would you say that about Johnita Broderick, Kathleen Wiley, and or Paula Jones? Should we believe them as well?
Well, I would say that everybody should be believed at first until they are disbelieved based on evidence.
Here we go. Juanita Broderick back in the news via Twitter saying that she was raped by Bill Clinton. Okay. I thought this was all put to rest years ago by attorneys, but this is exactly what I was talking about the other day. Now, is this going to be a distraction? Now, what's going to happen is probably the Clinton managers are going to be telling media people, don't be covering this, because if you do, it's going to be hard to get along with you, and there might not be access. So there probably won't be a whole lot of conversation about this in the mainstream media. It'll be on some websites, and that's where it's going to be. But this is exactly what I was talking about the other day, that if there's ever an issue that comes up, if by chance there's an issue or something that takes place with the former president, this is what the media is going to be focusing on, and this is exactly what I was talking about, this kind of stuff. So, I guess a real cynic could say, well, why in the world would we pay attention to what Bill Cosby's saying and or what Bill Cosby's accusers are saying, but pay no attention to what Juanita Broderick is saying? And you got to kind of think, well, yeah. You mean to tell me that she is totally discarded? She has no credibility whatsoever, and she's a 73-year-old woman, and nobody's supposed to pay attention to her? And Hillary's in this story, too. Broderick mentions her, saying that there was some conversation and thanks going on for not going after her husband and how that communication was interpreted. I mean, it's just, I have to tell you, I think this is what tires a lot of people. We got so much stuff going on in this country that we got to take care of. We don't even know what North Korea did when it came to testing their military equipment, which I'm going to transition to now.
Ed Schultz, remember him from the 24/7 televised net house, MSNBC? Yeah, what a guy. Now, I guess he's bumped from his radio show and he's podcaster. Nothing wrong with that, right? Sounding there a lot like he thinks Juanita Broderick, who, if you don't know who she is, and as you could tell from that question from an obvious millennial questioner, I think she called her Janita Broderick, doesn't remember the 1992 campaign. But of course, Juanita Broderick didn't play prominent in that campaign because she actually did not come forward at the time of the Paula Jones allegations and all of that. She actually kind of hung back and didn't talk a lot about it. But I mentioned earlier, I don't often cite this source, but I am going to link in the show notes, and I will commend to your attention an article from January 7th of this year. So what day would that be? Thursday? On Vox by someone named Dylan Matthews, the rape allegation against Bill Clinton explained. And Dylan, I don't know if that's a man or woman, references on Wednesday that Juanita Broderick tweeted a reminder of her allegation that Bill Clinton raped her during his campaign for governor of Arkansas in 1978. She tweeted, "I was 35 years old when Bill Clinton, Arkansas Attorney General, raped me and Hillary tried to silence me. I'm now 73 and never goes away." And she talks in here to the Vox reporter about how, she can't take it. She sees Hillary on TV. She sees Hillary talking about how sexual assault survivors should be believed. And Hillary, as you heard there, says, well, they should be believed until they're disbelieved based on evidence. Now, so far, there really hasn't been any evidence one way or another when we talk about this Juanita Broderick allegation. But because there is no physical evidence, as this story points out, there are contemporaneous stories by friends of Juanita Broderick who report that right after this happened, they saw her. She had a swollen lip and was very traumatized. And if you don't know what the allegation is, Let me read from the story. This was extensively reported by only one reporter, and this was in 1999. Lisa Myers of NBC News reported she did an interview with Juanita Broderick, and this was broadcast right after Bill Clinton was acquitted of his lying under oath charges in the impeachment. So they conducted the interview January 20th, 1999, but it was not actually broadcast until February 24th, 1999. But what she claims is that in 1978, Juanita Broderick, she was volunteering for Clinton's gubernatorial campaign, and she met him at his campaign office in her hometown of Van Buren, Arkansas, and that he invited her to visit his office in Little Rock when she was supposed to go to a conference for nursing home administrators. So once she was in Little Rock, she says, Clinton contacted her and said, I'm not going to headquarters. Juanita, I'm not actually going to campaign headquarters today. Can we meet over at your hotel in the lobby in the coffee shop? So, she thought, all right, that's fine. Once she got there, she says he called her room and suggested that she have coffee there because the lobby had too many reporters. Now, a lot of you are thinking, that's a red flag, right? And of course it is. And many of you grew up as I did with a mother who told you that you never invite a man to your hotel room when you're by yourself, unless you want to have sex with him. I mean, I hate to be so blunt and graphic about it, but really, I mean, there is something about hotel rooms, isn't there, guys? Anyway, especially a guy like Bill Clinton. Are you kidding me? Anyway, all right, so she invited him to her hotel room, and this has been reported in a variety of different newspapers as well, the Liberal Death Star, the New York Times, the Washington Post, all these other stories. But the Lisa Myers interview in 1999 was the big thing that broke the story. So she says that when he got up there, he started kissing her. And as she tried to push him away, he pulled her onto the bed and raped her. And she said she didn't scream because everything happened so quickly. And he actually bit her lip, and that's why it was swollen. And she said the last thing he said to me was, you better get some ice for that. And he put on his sunglasses and walked out the door. So several friends, we've got this Norma Rogers, who was also at the conference, and she came into the room right after, and she saw her crying and had a swollen lip. Of course, this was pre-smartphone, so they didn't actually take any photos. On the Dateline show, there were two other friends, Louise Ma, three other friends, Louise Ma, Susan Lewis, and Jean Darden, according to this Vox story. And Jean Darden is Norma Rogers' sister, so that's the other friend. And they all told NBC News that Broderick told them Clinton raped her at the time. David Broderick, now this is a fact I didn't know, with whom Broderick was having an affair at the time, they both eventually left their spouses to marry each other, also told NBC that Broderick's top lip was black after the alleged incident, and she told him that she had been raped by Bill Clinton. Okay, so, I don't know what he did about it. She was traumatized and scared of Clinton, and she didn't tell her then-husband, Gary Hickey. She says she was in denial and felt very guilty and felt it was her fault. And I'm sure a woman of that generation, definitely, you invite a man up to your hotel room, you would feel it was your fault. Okay. Now, I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying this is what happened. I'm also saying that I'm not the one like Hillary Clinton who says that any woman who accuses a man of sexual assault should be believed. And let's remember what happened with Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill, right? There was no evidence there. It was another he said, she said. And Anita Hill basically followed Clarence Thomas all over the government to get different jobs after supposedly he didn't rape her, but sexually harassed her. And all the feminists just fell in line, said she had to believe. How about that goofball who was walking around, was it Columbia University, with a mattress, claiming that some guy raped her? How about, what's her name, Lena Dunham, making up some story about some Republican guy raping her? I mean, we can go on. And the feminists all fall in line. And when it comes to this woman, basically, if she doesn't have two witnesses with notarized statements and a videotape, we can't believe her. In 1979, Broderick was appointed by Clinton to a non-paid advisory board position, which she told Lisa Myers she accepted before she knew it was a gubernatorial appointment. In 1984, she claimed she got a letter from Clinton after her nursing home was recognized as one of the top facilities in the state, with a handwritten note saying, quote, "I admire you very much," unquote. She interpreted that as a thank you for her silence. Then, in 1991, she says she saw Clinton outside a meeting on nursing home standards in Little Rock, and that he said he wanted to apologize to her and asked what he could do to make things right. She recalls saying nothing and walking away. Apologize for the rape? I assume so. About 6 months after her initial interviews in 1999, Broderick told the Drudge Report that mere weeks after the alleged assault, Hillary Clinton had tried to thank her for her silence on the matter at a political rally. And this is the time when Juanita Broderick said she was threatened by Hillary Clinton. Hillary came directly up to me as soon as she hit the door. I had been there only a few minutes. I only wanted to make an appearance and leave. She caught me and took my hand and said, quote, "I am so happy to meet you. I want you to know that I appreciate everything you do for Bill." I started to turn away, and she held onto my hand and reiterated the phrase, looking less friendly, and repeated her statement, "Everything you do for Bill." I said nothing. She wasn't letting me get away until she made her point. She talked low. The smile faded on the second thank you. I just released her hand from mine and left the gathering. So this apparently was... originally they said that when she talked to Lisa Myers, all these press accounts said she never mentioned this, but Lisa Myers actually contacted Vox and said, no, she did tell NBC that Hillary effectively had this encounter, and Hillary did effectively threaten her. So, I mean, she did not go public. I mean, a lot of people wanted her to come forward in 1992. Paula Jones' lawyers wanted her to come forward. She didn't come forward until Ken Starr contacted her, and the allegation got leaked, and so she told Lisa Myers that, the Wall Street Journal asked her, and she said Lisa Myers had pursued her for over a year to try to get this interview. So it is still a situation where there is no physical evidence, and there are defenders of Bill Clinton, like, of course, Sid Vicious, the slimy Sidney Blumenthal, who says, this woman is not credible. She's made inconsistent statements. And Sidney Blumenthal also says, as is pointing out in this Vox article, that Norma Rogers, the first one I mentioned, who saw what happened after Bill Clinton allegedly raped Juanita Broderick, that we couldn't believe her or her sister Jean Darden because in 1980, Bill Clinton had commuted the death sentence of their father's killer. Okay, well, I mean, that's a point, but that doesn't address the other two friends. So, or David Broderick, the guy she eventually left her husband for or married. So, I mean, it doesn't mean that her story is necessarily accurate, but also doesn't mean it's not accurate. And it does seem odd, if it's not accurate, that she started tweeting about it last week. Are they suggesting she has some sort of personal grudge against Bill Clinton? And if so, why, if this never happened? His lawyers, Clinton's lawyers, have privately conceded that he may have had a consensual affair with her, that she may have had sex with Bill Clinton consensually, something they could probably say about a lot of women in Arkansas. So anyway, I think that this is going to continue to dog Hillary, as are the issues with her emails and with Benghazi. But we'll get to that in a second. But before I leave this topic, I do want to mention that Hillary was also questioned recently at a town hall by a woman named Kathleen Prudhomme O'Brien, who is a New Hampshire state representative. And I will link to her Facebook post. So this is the woman who stood up, and Hillary got very, oh my God, the mask fell off, and she turned into the wicked witch Hillary, the Nurse Ratched, as Rush would say, and said, "You are very rude, and I'm never calling on you." She turned into that, and she's got a long Facebook post here explaining why she did that. And once again, I just think it's going to dog her, and I'll link to this also in the show notes. At TeriO'Brien.com, TeriO'Brien, just like my cousin Conan. Also on the Hillary front, here is a story, a McClatchy story from last Friday by Anita Kumar, Dateline Washington. At least 1,340 emails that Hillary Clinton sent or received contained classified material, according to the State Department's latest update from its ongoing review of more than 30,000 emails. The State Department released a new batch of 3,007 pages of Clinton's emails after 1:30 a.m. Friday in response to a court order. These people, they're too much. These Friday document dumps. Of those, 66 contained classified information. None of Clinton's emails was marked as classified during her tenure, State Department officials say, but intelligence officials say some material was clearly classified at the time. Her aides also sent and received classified information. Clinton has been under fire for months for exclusively using personal email routed through a private server while serving as the nation's top diplomat. The FBI launched an inquiry into the handling of sensitive information after classified information was found in some. In response to a public records lawsuit, and I believe that's from our friends at Judicial Watch, the State Department is releasing Clinton's emails at the end of each month after partially or entirely redacting any containing sensitive U.S. or foreign government information. So far, it has released 43,148 pages of emails. And as, of course, we've discussed, they did miss the deadline that was set for them. And, if you're Hillary Clinton, you can pretty much do whatever you want. And, of course, you guys are all aware, I'm sure, of the story of Hillary Clinton telling one of her aides to ignore the fact that something is classified and just strip out the headers and send it through a non-classified means, even if it is classified. Let me get you that story. What I'm referring to here is an email exchange that Hillary had with one of her primary aides, a guy named Jake Sullivan, and this was in June of 2012. And a lot of people are saying, this is a smoking gun because it appears that Hillary improperly instructed this Jake Sullivan to send classified information by unsecure email when he wasn't able to send it by secure fax. And so, as she has said, I never use my homebrew server to send or receive classified information. But in this email, she says, if they can't fix the server, turn into non-paper with no identifying heading and send non-secure. She was asked about that this morning on on Face the Nation, and her answer was that she told Sullivan to take out any classified material from the original document and send what was left via insecure email. But, of course, that's not what this says, number one. Number two, she also claims that the State Department agreed with her and says she didn't do anything wrong. But that's also not true. Friday, there was a press briefing with the State Department spokesman, John Kirby, and he was asked all about this, and he did not. He basically said, I don't know. I don't have context. I'm going to continue to refrain from speaking to specific content here or former Secretary Clinton's email practice. So this, just like the claim that the issue of natural born citizen is completely settled, is also false. It isn't settled. And the State Department did not validate her claim that she did nothing wrong. So, it'll be interesting to see, but this is going to continue to dog her. And of course, if there is an indictment, then of course it could be the coup de grace to her campaign. Now, I know a lot of you are saying it doesn't matter what the FBI does. There isn't going to be any indictment of Hillary Clinton because the Obama regime won't allow it. I don't know. What if there's mass resignations? What if it's like the, Saturday Night Massacre during Watergate? Wouldn't it be ironic if that happened, given Hillary's involvement in trying to crucify Richard Nixon? Do you suppose Hillary thinks that she should not be allowed to have a lawyer the same way she thought Richard Nixon shouldn't be able to have a lawyer during the Watergate scandal? So we have Juanita Broderick and the other accusers of Bill Clinton. And who knows, maybe more of them are going to come out of the woodwork. I'd like to see Betsy Wright come out of the woodwork. She was part of Hillary's bimbo eruption team. Hillary led the charge, of course, but Betsy Wright was there on the front lines, I think, probably fielding the initial complaints. So we've got the sexual assaults and even rape by Bill Clinton, which is not going to go away, and which is really damaging to Hillary's claim that she's a champion of women's rights. Well, then we've got this clear violation of the Espionage Act and these emails, which we've talked about, and this potential smoking gun of this June 2011 exchange with her buddy Jake Sullivan, who I don't know if he's going to take the fifth like that other guy. Remember the guy that was her tech guru guy? He took the fifth already. So I don't know what. And then, of course, the final thing we have is the Benghazi situation, which is not going to go away either. I'm looking at a story from yesterday. It's actually about this movie that's coming out, 13 Hours in Benghazi, which is coming out on Friday. The headline is, "We Were Left Behind, Benghazi Soldiers Tell All." And it's a very compelling story, and I think it's going to be a very compelling film. And contrary to what Hillary apologists would have you believe, her October 22nd, 2015 testimony before Congress, which she likes to trumpet her 11 hours. I was there for 11 hours. Yeah, but it proved that you're a liar. Under the withering questioning of Jim Jordan, a Republican of Ohio, it was proven that this story about the video that you tried to peddle to the families, I mean, how cold-blooded and evil do you have to be to tell these Benghazi families that their loved ones died because of a video? When you know, and you've told your daughter, and you've told officials in Egypt that it was a terrorist attack, how evil do you have to be? Well, Hillary evil, which is really the depth of evil, in my opinion. But anyway, and you may have seen, as I posted at terryobrien.com, and I will add this to the show notes, the video of Charles Woods, who is the father of Tyrone Woods, saying that he would like to take a polygraph, and he would like Hillary to take a polygraph about whether or not she actually did tell him that his son was murdered because of a video. Now, the one downside of that, of course, is that for a sociopath like Hillary, I think a lie detector is going to be pretty much a piece of cake. I don't think that's going to be tough at all, but Charles Woods is a retired judge, and I'll link here in the show notes to this video, which is from One America News. He says, he'd like to take a lie detector and have Hillary take a lie detector. And that would be interesting. Of course, that won't happen, but you'd like to see it, wouldn't you? Yeah, so would I. All right, on the other side, oh my God, let me take a look here. Do I want to talk about, we have a Second Amendment update coming up. That's going to be in the next hour, and that's going to be huge. But do we want to talk, how about this hippie, this Portland hippie? Have you guys heard about this guy? I guess he's the second coming of James Taylor. He wants to put on a peace conference. No, I'm sorry, a peace concert. No, I'm not still on drugs. I'll be right back. Yeah, there he is, James Twyman, the hippie, singing for peace. I wonder if they're going to let him take his guitar into the cage when they parade him down the street. Now, obviously, I hope nothing happens to this poor fool, but you talk about your useful idiots. This guy definitely fills the bill. January 20th, so when is that? That is like 10 days from now. And we will be continuing to follow this story about this poor unhinged hippie. And maybe John Kerry will show up with James Taylor. That would be kind of a nice touch, wouldn't it? I'll be right back on the other side with a Second Amendment update. Stay tuned.
She's America's original conservative warrior princess, daring to fearlessly and, more importantly, cheerfully commit common sense in the age of Obama. You're listening to The Teri O'Brien Show.
If we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price. Those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look. The sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom. Each one of those markers is a monument to the kind of hero I spoke of earlier. Their lives ended in places called Belleau Wood, the Argonne, Omaha Beach, Salerno, and halfway around the world on Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Pork Chop Hill, the Chosin Reservoir, and in 100 rice paddies and jungles of a place called Vietnam. Under one such marker lies a young man, Martin Treptow, who left his job in a small-town barber shop in 1917 to go to France with the famed Rainbow Division. There on the Western Front, he was killed trying to carry a message between battalions under heavy artillery fire. We're told that on his body was found a diary. On the flyleaf, under the heading, My Pledge, he had written these words: America must win this war. Therefore I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone. We must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon our adversaries in today's world do not have. It is a weapon that we as Americans do have. Let that be understood by those who practice terrorism and prey upon their neighbors. As for the enemies of freedom, those who are potential adversaries, they will be reminded that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people. We will negotiate for it, sacrifice for it. We will not surrender for it now or ever. We are Americans.
We just want to say that we're not Spirit Bunnies anymore. We always hated that name. It bugged the heck out of Dina and me. It's just such a put down. Really. We know you've got a lot of spirit, everybody, right? And we're going to destroy Lincoln next week, all right? You know, it takes a lot of courage to get up here and do something that you know people will make fun of.
Ooh, what a girl. She's always in a whirl.
Always going new places, seeing new faces. That girl on the go.
Teri O'Brien.
Wonderful girl on the go.
Ah, yes, welcome to this January 10th, 2016 edition of the Teri O'Brien Show. Yeah, I'll call this a semi-live edition of the program in that, as you guys know, it'll be 2 weeks ago tomorrow that I had my encounter with the healthcare system. And I will tell you, it turned out to be a little bit more complicated than everybody thought it was going to be. But, you know, all's well that ends well. And the husband was very concerned about the pathology reports. But of course, you know me, I'm the kid that wakes up in the room of horse manure and figures there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. And I knew my pathology would come out clean, which it did 100%. So I'm quite pleased. I got to give a shout out to the husband who has been absolutely fantastic during this whole recovery process. It's not easy to deal with all the stuff around here by yourself and also work full time. And he has been doing that and doing it magnificently. So, you know, I got a good guy. What can I say? Oh, wait, what's that I hear?
When a man's in trouble or in a good fight, you want all your friends around them, preferably armed.
You can't say Americans are not more violent than other people.
No.
All those people killed in shootings in America?
Oh, shootings. Yes, but that doesn't mean Americans are more violent than other people. We're just better shots.
Live in a world without guns.
That's very sweet, but a little naive.
I swear to uphold and protect the Constitution of these United States. So relax, gun nuts. I can't touch you.
Second Amendment update, regular feature here on the Teri O'Brien Show. We've got a lot of Second Amendment news today. We are going to get into, of course, talking about the lies and fallacies in Barack Obama's recent press conference, and he had that show with Anderson Cooper on Thursday night, that town hall, where Chris Kyle's widow, Taya Kyle, basically owned him, where a rape victim, and you've actually heard this rape victim on this program because we play those spots where she is featured in the NRA spots about being raped. Obama basically said, well, no one's going to take away your gun. And besides, guns in the home make the people less safe. Yeah, he actually said that. It was a real cringe-inducing embarrassment. But before we get into that, I'd like to share with you something I don't think you've heard elsewhere. We talked about it at TeriO'Brien.com. Please go there, TeriO'Brien.com. Please go there. Please comment and post our post to your social networking sites. Please start your Amazon shopping there. All of that helps us keep the lights on here, which we greatly appreciate. But we talked about one of the things that Obama is proposing, and this is already happening to veterans pursuant to the VA, that he is proposing rules that if you're a Social Security recipient, let's say, and you have someone helping you manage your affairs, your checkbook, and your investments, at least possibly you could be judged ineligible to have a firearm under these new rules. And that's particularly interesting this week when last Monday, a woman in New Hampshire, a 65-year-old woman, actually exercised her Second Amendment rights. And we call her Harriet, the gun-toting granny. She did an interview on WFEA radio. I want to share some of that interview with you right now. I think you will enjoy it.
This isn't about fame for her. This is about getting a message out. And Gunman Granny will share that message with us this morning on AM 1370 and FM 99.9 WFEA. Jared Goodell with you on a Thursday morning. It's 8:15 now. Let's bring her in. Good morning to you. We'll call you. You said you want to be called Harriet.
That'll be fine.
All right, we'll call you Harriet this morning. Let's real quick get to the reason why you do not want your name to be known. You're not telling anybody your name. It's very difficult to find out who you are. Believe me, I spent all day yesterday trying to find out who you are. Tell us why you're trying to keep a low profile after this story.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Jared, and I want to thank WFEA for inviting me here this morning to tell my story. And I want to say that, this is really not about me. This is about a message, hopefully, that is going out there to other people, especially in my age group. And that's why I'm here doing this interview.
And that message would be to arm yourselves. We have in New Hampshire, it's great in New Hampshire because we have the ability to very easily obtain not only a firearm, but also to easily obtain a concealed carry permit, which I believe is what you have.
Yes, I do.
The grandmother with us, the 65. Are you really a grandmother?
I really am.
Right.
I became a new grandmother in November. My grandson was born.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Gunman Granny with us here. She's the 65-year-old Manchester woman who shot and injured a man Monday night. Let's start from the very beginning. So it's late at night. What time was this?
About 11:30.
It's 11:30.
Yes.
You just left work.
I did.
And you're driving home, and you notice that somebody's following you. Take us through that story.
No. I went to the mobile gas station on the run on South Willow Street first, okay, before I went home because I was empty. I had to fill up. So anyway, I went there. I got gas. I went in the store, and I got a little bit of milk, and then got back in my car and started for home. Then when I got at the light on South Willow Street, right by the Sunoco station, waiting to go left, I noticed this vehicle pull up behind me kind of fast. And all I can say is that I just got this weird feeling like I took notice of it. I'll say that, okay? Something inside. So anyway, I leave the light and I come down my street and I look and that car's still behind me, not right up on my bumper, but it was a little ways behind me. So I went and I park in the lower parking lot where I live. And I went down, I pulled in, parked, and before I got out of the car, just something told me to take my gun out of my purse and put it in my coat pocket. Just that little voice, and thank God I listened to it. So I did. I put the gun in my pocket, and then I exited my car. And I was carrying a bag in my left hand that I bring to work all the time, and I had my purse on around my neck. And then, so anyway, I was walking, and then I noticed the vehicle came around the corner and pulled up and stopped right about where I parked, okay? They didn't pull into a parking space. They just stopped. Then I heard a car door open. I heard somebody get out of the car. So now where I live, if that person was like being dropped off, which seemed to me like it was, somebody was getting dropped off, he should have gone into the other building, not walk around and come up to my building. So I'm walking, and I look around, and I notice he's walking behind me. I walk a little more. I try to stay calm, and I noticed his pace really, really, really picked up. So at that moment, I knew this is not good, And then he walked up fast enough that he got ahead of me. He turned around and stood right in front of me in my face and blocked my path. So, and he said, no, I didn't really know what he exactly said. It was like, hey, you, I want, or something like that. So I'm assuming he probably said, I want your pocketbook or purse. As soon as he moved his left arm to touch me, that's when I pulled the gun out and I shot him.
So the gun was loaded?
Oh, absolutely, locked and loaded.
Now, did you mentioned that you took the gun out of your purse, you put it in your jacket because you felt like something
exactly.
was up. Was the gun already loaded in your purse? Or did you load it?
Always locked and loaded. Always. Right. Always.
AM 1370 WFEA, also on the FM at 99.9. The gunman Granny with us on the Gerald Goodell Show this morning on WFEA. She is the 65-year-old woman who, as you just heard, was essentially stalked to her apartment building on Monday night, and she felt that this guy was about to rob her. He's asking, or she thinks that that he's asking for her purse, and she pulls her gun out, and you felt threatened. You felt like you had to shoot him. Let's get to that moment right there. When you make the decision,
right.
How long have you had a concealed carry permit? How long have you had
over
a weapon?
10 years.
Over 10 years.
Yeah.
Now, and I mentioned this morning, whether it's a police officer or a citizen, anybody that owns a firearm never wants to actually have to use it.
Absolutely.
So let's go to that moment right there when you have to make that decision to pull the gun out.
To be very honest, I just, was watching him, and when I saw him go for me, there was no thinking. You know what I'm saying? It was just an automatic reaction, was to pull the gun out and shoot him.
Now, you're not a tall woman, Gunman Granny.
4'11".
4'11". This guy was a foot taller than you.
Yes, he was.
We don't have his weight. But
I
I'm
did
guessing.
have to look up to him. They said he was 200 pounds.
Yeah. This is a big guy. He could have hurt you.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
You felt threatened. He's reaching out. He's reaching towards you. He's bringing his arm towards you. He's saying something. Did he appear like he was maybe high or anything like that?
Couldn't tell.
You couldn't tell?
No, I couldn't tell.
A Gunman Granny with this at 8:21 on WFEA. All right, let's get to what happens then. So you fire your firearm, and then what happens?
I stood there. I was kind of almost like dumbfounded. As soon as I shot him, though, he immediately went to the ground, face down. And the girl, and yes, there was a girl driving. I saw that 100%. When they came around the bend to go around down to the bottom parking lot as I was walking, then I saw her driving, a girl driving, certainty. So anyway, after I shot him and he fell, then the car came around and went like around him, and they went up a little bit beyond and stopped. The girl got out of the driver's side, and she ran down to him, and I was standing on the front stairs of my building, okay? I wasn't saying a word. I didn't do anything. I just stood there. I still had the gun in my hand, and she came running down, and she's kind of like yelling at me, like, don't, stop, got to get him to the hospital. So, as I said, I just stood there. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. And he got up. I don't know if she assisted him or not, but he got up, and the two of them ran up and got into the vehicle, and they left. It was at that time that I went into my building and went to my apartment and called the police and called 911.
How much time passed between that moment when you had to fire your firearm and you said you stood out there and you watched her trying to get him up.
It was probably about 10 minutes by the time I called. Well, yes, because when I entered my building, one of my neighbors from upstairs came down. And he said, wow, he said, what happened? He said, I heard that, Are you all right? Are you okay? And I said, yeah. And I said, I said his name. And I said, I just shot someone, And I was so nervous. My legs were literally like rubber. They really were. And I was shaking so bad. So after I spoke with him, he walked me to my apartment and they made sure I was okay. So I said, don't worry. I said, I'm going to go in and call the police, which is then what I did. I called the police. They asked me to unload my weapon, which I did, cartridge.
They did this over the 911 call? They told you over the phone to unload
it? Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes. And, but I gave them a full description. I gave them the full story of everything that happened, the sequence in which it happened. And so they knew he was going to the hospital, obviously, and that's how they were able to catch up to him at the hospital.
And he went to the Elliott Hospital on Monday night. Gunman Granny with us, the 65-year-old Manchester woman who shot and injured a man on Monday night who was trying to rob her. First sit-down interview, first long-form interview that Gunman Granny has had here this morning at 8:24 on WFEA on the Jared Goodell Show. All right, let's get to the police come. Mm-hmm. You described to them his description. You described everything that happened. Then what? I mean, how were the? I mean, you shot a man, and given the times that we're in now, I mean, you call 911 and say I shot somebody. Right. When the police come, how are the police officers to you?
Okay, overall, the police treated me wonderful. They really did. They treated me wonderful. They had respect. They listened to me. Other than when they first got there and I first exited my building, an officer did come up to me and held my hands in the back. And that was an unnerving moment because I thought I was getting cuffed. I really did, because of how I was being held. But they only wanted to frisk me just to make sure that I didn't have any weapons. And I know that's for my safety and their safety. So I truly, truly understood the whole procedure and what was going to happen. I watched a lot of investigative discovery and forensic files, and I've learned a lot from watching those shows. In fact, I have to say it probably helped me to understand the whole situation and the whole process of what I knew was going to have to occur afterwards. They have to investigate it, But they were wonderful to me. They treated me wonderful.
Gunman Granny with us at 8:25 now on the Jared Goodell Show, AM 1370, FM 99.9, WFEA. All right, so how long did they question you at your apartment?
Oh, at least an hour or more, and then the rest of the time was spent with them investigating the area in which it happened, But I was inside my building and there was an officer with me at all times, and no, it was fine. It was fine.
Harriet, the New Hampshire gun-toting granny, from an interview Thursday on the Jared Goodell Show on WFEA radio. So this woman could arguably be disarmed. What does she think about the president's proposals, and who is she supporting in the presidential election? We are going to get into that. Also, what about Barack Obama's proposals? We're going to get into those. And we've also got, I want to share with you the number of foreign-born individuals involved in terrorism, as we have the spectacle of Barack Obama, on the one hand, talking about wanting to keep everyone safe, while on the other hand, leaving the borders open and trying to import as many Syrian Muslims and Muslims from other parts of the world into this country. And they're going to bring their problems here, and they're not going to assimilate. And of course, we do have the Cologne story, which we wrote about extensively at TeriO'Brien.com, about the rape jihad. So all that and more coming up on this January 10th, 2016 edition of the Teri O'Brien Show. I will be right back.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter. The address is @Teri O'Brien. TeriObrien. That's Obrien, spelled just like Terry's cousin, Conan. Thanks for your encouragement and support.
America's wounded warriors are coming home. After serving on foreign shores, these brave men and women are returning to their families and communities. Many have wounds you can see, and many have wounds you can't see, like post-traumatic stress disorder. Now that these warriors are back home, they are ready to enter the civilian workforce. To help, Wounded Warrior Project has developed the Warriors to Work program, a career counseling service that helps warriors translate their military experience to the civilian workplace. These extraordinary men and women bring proven world-class job skills and a unique perspective on teamwork to the job. And to ensure the right warrior finds the right job, Wounded Warrior Project works with employers to find just the right match. When you hire a wounded warrior, you hire an intelligent, talented, and committed new employee. Contact Wounded Warrior Project at findwwp.org. Welcome home the brave.
The farmer that was driving his horse and wagon to town for a load of grain had a head-on collision with an automobile. He was lying there seriously injured. Even some of them were permanent disabilities. And later followed the usual legal procedures with the insurance company and all, and he was on the stand, and a lawyer said to him, while you were lying there at the scene of the accident, didn't someone come up to you and ask you how you were feeling, and didn't you answer that you never felt better in your life? Well, he said, yes, I guess I remember that happening. Well, later on redirect, another lawyer was asking the question, and he said, what were the circumstances when you gave that answer as to how you felt? Well, he said, I was lying there, and he said, a car came up, and a deputy sheriff got out. He said, my horse was neighing with pain and kicking. He had 2 broken legs. The deputy sheriff put the gun in his ear and put the horse out of his misery. He said, my dog had a broken back and was whining with pain, and he went over, did the same thing, put there and shot him. And then he came over to me and said, now, how are you feeling?
This week's episode, Rattlesnake at the Pond.
Oh, Johnny, skipping rocks at the pond sure is fun. Hey, look, a moving stick. That ain't a stick. That's a rattlesnake. Sassy, we're in danger. Good idea, Sassy. Go get Mr. Gunderson. You will in a second, but first you'd like to tell us something we may not know about animal shelters in the United States? It's getting close, Sassy! Approximately 8 million pets enter shelters each year? The majority of which are in shelters because of owner-related issues that the animals have no control over? Sassy the rattlesnake! Save us, Sassy! What, Sassy? You wish you were videotaping this? Sassy!
Sassy is brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org. Remember, adopt.
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck as a gift to Dave 2037, so he can spend it on things like anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman, something cool like that. I think Dave 2037 deserves it. He worked hard. What are you getting Steve 2037?
I guess I was thinking Steve 2037 would just fend for himself.
Well, all right, but don't expect to be borrowing my anti-gravity boots.
You want to have money in your future? You got to start saving now. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
Hey, let's just hope Steve 2037 doesn't get his hands on a cool time machine, because he is going to come back here and knock some sense into you.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Broadcasting from a secured bunker in an undisclosed location in flyover country, outside the East Coast bubble and far from left coast insanity. You're listening to America's original warrior princess, Teri O'Brien.
Learn more at TeriO'Brien.com.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U.
Here's what insightful and gifted writer Ginny DeAngelis of American Thinker and Breitbart fame says about Teri O'Brien's book, The ABCs of Barack Obama, Understanding God's Greatest Gift to America. In the book, The ABCs of Barack Obama, Understanding God's Greatest Gift to America, Teri O'Brien illustrates her brilliance. This lady uses sarcasm like a sword and cuts through the absurdity of America being forced to endure the A to Z disaster who, when he's not on vacation, lives in the White House. The well-researched information doesn't miss one iota of what's gone on for the past 6+ years. Teri weaves hard-hitting facts together with snarkiness and humor. You'll find yourself laughing. Then, as you're giggling, you'll begin to realize that what seemed comical is actually pathetic. Only from Teri could you get a statement like this. Election day, unemployment was 7.9%, which sounded bad to some people, but that didn't matter. It was no match for the awesome power of Barack Obama's radiant, loving energy and his amazing ability to care so much about people, especially the downtrodden, that they could literally feel his long arms warmly hugging them as they watched Judge Judy every afternoon. Read The ABCs of Barack Obama, Understanding God's Greatest Gift to America. Trust me, learning the hard truth will be very entertaining. Another reviewer writes, "This book was great fun to read and was especially valuable for the links to news reports on each of the topics covered. The fun part stops when you realize what a cumulative disaster Obama's term in office has been. Much of it documented in this book. What say you? Get your copy of The ABCs of Barack Obama, Understanding God's Greatest Gift to America on Amazon.com today for the amazing price of only 99 cents. And let us know what you think by writing to abcs@terryobrien.com or posting your review on Amazon. Thank you for your encouragement and support.
Now I know my ABCs. Aren't you very proud of me?
If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. Thomas Jefferson. You're listening to Informed America Radio.
Teri's book, The ABCs of Barack Obama, Understanding God's Greatest Gift to America, is available on Amazon.com, Smashwords.com, and the iBook store. Get yours today.
She's like a fist inside a velvet glove, softly shattering left-wing stupidity. The Teri O'Brien Show, proud member of the Red State Talk Radio Network.
Red State Talk Radio.
The Talk Monster.
Welcome back to this January 10th, 2016 edition of the Teri O'Brien Show. Yeah, we got more from the gun-toting granny, and then some questions about Barack Obama's latest scheme to try to get your guns. And I will tell you, before we get into the gun-toting granny and we debunk some of these lies that Obama was telling last week, his designated spokesidiot this morning on all the Sunday shows was Dennis McDonough, the zombie-like chief of staff. He does sort of look like a zombie with those sunken eyes. But he, basically poo-pooed the idea that Obama wants to take away anybody's guns. But as regular listeners to the Teri O'Brien Show know, because we've played the audio for you, Professor John Lott, author of More Guns, Less Crime, and one of the leading researchers in the area of Second Amendment and gun rights, told us that when they were both on the faculty at the University of Chicago, Obama told him that he did not believe in an individual right to keep and bear arms. Now, maybe he's changed his mind, but I don't think so, because he's a hardwired leftist, and that is a standard leftist position. So, I think that people that claim that that's not true, that's baloney. Anyway, more of the gun-toting granny talking about who she's supporting for president, what she thinks of background checks. Let's take a listen.
Everywhere I go and look and have been told, I have been getting 100% support. 100% support for what I've done. Everybody has just been wonderful. They've been wonderful.
Well, let's talk about that right now, too, because the gun conversation, the Second Amendment conversation has certainly been big for a couple of years now, but specifically this week, it has been huge. I mean, this happens Monday night where you're forced, you feel like your life is in danger, somebody's about to rob you, you shoot them. This happens Monday night.
Yes.
On Tuesday and on Monday as well, we're talking about the president and an executive order on gun control. Let's talk about the gun control piece of this. You've had a concealed carry permit for over 10 years. You carry all the time. You're locked and loaded all the time. You obviously believe in the Second Amendment.
Absolutely.
We've got the president now who's trying to make it more difficult for people like you to protect themselves.
I know. I mean, I will say personally, I have no problem with background checks.
Yep.
I just don't. That's me. So, but I mean, trying to, literally try to take our guns away, it'll never happen.
Right.
He's not going to take our guns away.
I don't think that anyone has an issue with background checks. There's certainly, backdoor background or backdoor gun control where somebody is put on the no-fly list and suddenly they can't buy a gun and they don't know how they got on the no-fly list. It's backdoor gun control, some would argue. But the whole issue of, you yourself are a senior citizen, and there's some questions about people, seniors who might be considered incompetent. Their doctors would have to report them to the government as incompetent. I mean, you could have your gun taken away if your doctor feels like you're not sane enough to have one.
I know that's supposed to be part of the bill, that doctors can say, this person should have it. I mean, as far as mental illness, that also really is a serious, important issue, because there are people out there that with mental illnesses that should not have a gun. And the reason being is because they're unpredictable. You know what I mean? I mean, they could whack out at any moment and hurt people or shoot somebody, and then they're going to say, oh, they're bipolar, oh, they're this and they're that, so they're not responsible for what they've done. Well, they shouldn't have got a gun in the first place if they were able to get it by legal means.
Gunman Granny with us, 8:29 now on the Jared Goodell Show, AM 1370, FM 99.9, WFEA. On the topic of Second Amendment and the president that we have now, and it certainly is 2016. This is the big election year, first in the nation primary here in New Hampshire. Is there one candidate that sticks out to you? That there's a candidate that you like, or is there a candidate that you believe will stand up for the Second Amendment?
Personally, and I know people usually don't want to talk politics, but I do like Donald Trump. I don't know why he's campaigning the way he is, but, to me, the government is a business, and that's how the government should be run, as a business. And he is a successful businessman.
Harriet, a.k.a. the gun-toting granny from New Hampshire, who exercised her Second Amendment rights on Monday night and stopped a 23-year-old punk dirtbag from, it looks like, trying to rob her. Who knows what? But I think it's interesting. She mentions the background checks. I don't think, in concept, people aren't opposed to background checks. But the problem is, and the reason that a lot of Second Amendment advocates oppose these so-called common sense gun laws. And isn't it hilarious to hear people on the left talk to us about common sense? These people wouldn't know common sense if it sat down to breakfast with them and asked them to pass the salt. I mean, these common sense, that's an alien concept. But the problem is a couple of things. Number one, if you're going to require a background check in every situation, require a license in every situation, a son wants to give or sell a firearm to his father, you want to sell your gun to your brother, you have to go through all this rigmarole, go get fingerprints, do all, find somebody to help you do this. I mean, it's an enormous hassle. Do you have to become a gun dealer? Do you have to get an ATF license? There's a tremendous number of hoops you have to jump through there, not only paying the fee, but you got to have a personal interview, and it goes on and on. And so that's number one. Number two, it's what lawyers typically would call a trap for the unwary. What does that mean? That means you can be breaking the law without knowing you're breaking the law. And as you all know, ignorance of the law is no excuse, right? Therefore, if you are not aiming to cause any problem, give a gun to someone who's a criminal, you could still run afoul of the law. Now, here's the thing. they talk about these background checks as if there aren't already a lot of laws on the books that are not being enforced. We're going to get into that in a moment, but just let's remember, or let's review in case you don't know. There's a number of state laws. There's 18 states in the District of Columbia that have expanded and extended the background check even to private sales. There's 8 states, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Washington State, and D.C. that require universal background checks at the point of sale for all transfers of all classes of firearms, including for people that are private citizens. So now, this last time I checked, D.C. had a lot of gun violence. And then there are several states, Maryland and Pennsylvania, that also require universal background checks, including private sales, but only for handguns. Then there are 4 states, Hawaii, Illinois, Massachusetts, and New Jersey, that require any firearm purchase, including a purchase from an unlicensed seller, to obtain a permit issued after a background check. And 4 more states, Iowa, Michigan, Nebraska, and North Carolina, do the same, only for handguns. Illinois also requires a background check whenever a firearm is sold at a gun show. And so the so-called gun show loophole is a myth, at least in Illinois. So so these already exist. Now, let's get into the fact that a lot of the laws are not being enforced. This is something I asked at terryobrien.com earlier in the week. The Washington Times has reported that the administration has overseen a striking drop in prosecutions of gun crimes, winning only about 6,000 convictions in 2015, down more than 15% from 5 years ago, and giving added weight to claims by gun rights groups that President Obama has failed to enforce the laws already on the books. And this is always a problem with Democrats, right? They never want to enforce the existing gun laws. As a series of high-profile mass shootings has drawn attention to the issue, Mr. Obama has pushed for ever stricter gun laws prohibiting sales of some firearms and paraphernalia and more controls on whom they can be sold to. But the push comes as his lawyers at the Justice Department are winning fewer cases using the laws already passed to ban criminals from buying or owning firearms, according to data compiled by the Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse at Syracuse University. The trend predates Mr. Obama, with convictions peaking at 9,208 a decade ago, but dropping to 6,002 in fiscal year 2015, a fall of more than a third. Part of the reason is prosecutors are simply bringing fewer cases. So why is that? Now, we've also talked about the fact that one of the priorities of the regime is to pardon drug offenders. And why? Because, of course, it's all about racism, right? Being convicted of a drug crime, it's disproportionate among blacks and brown people. Oh, the downtrodden. Never mind that there are disproportionate levels of crime in these populations. And that needs to be taken into account. But, okay, so he wants to pardon all these people. But some of the people that he pardoned recently, last year, were drug offenders who committed crimes with guns. USA Today reported President Obama's decision to shorten the sentences of 95 federal prisoners Friday continued a trend toward Christmas time clemency that's being criticized as part of a broken process. Obama said the clemency grants, the largest single-day use of his pardon power in his presidency to date, another step forward in upholding our fundamental ideas of justice and fairness. He also gave complete pardons to 2 people involved in counterfeiting and bank fraud, the White House announced. Most of the commutations to shorter sentences dealt with drug offenses, given long mandatory minimum sentences, but also included 15 gun crimes, usually while committing a drug offense, and 1 armed robbery. So now why are we commuting the sentences of people who commit gun crimes if we're so concerned about gun crimes? Here's another question. You may have heard that at the State of the Union speech on Tuesday, which thank God will be Obama's very last State of the Union speech, he is going to have an empty chair up in the gallery. Oh, doesn't that get you right here? To symbolize all the victims of gun violence. If he's so concerned about innocent people being mowed down by guns, why has he thrown the border open and allowed everyone and anyone to get in? I suggest maybe he should have, instead of having an empty chair, have the parents of Kate Steinle, the person murdered by the illegal who'd been deported several times and who was a felon in San Francisco. Or how about let's have the empty chair symbolize Grant Rodenbeck. Have you heard it? You remember him? We reported on him a while ago. He's the guy that was 21 years old. He was working in Mesa, Arizona at a convenience market, and he was murdered over a pack of cigarettes by an illegal named Apolinar Altamirano, who was out of custody, even though he should have been held in custody, but he was out. And now this 21-year-old young man was murdered. Maybe we should have the empty chair be symbolic of the many people killed by illegals in the country. Also, I would ask, if he's concerned about our safety, why is he allowing hundreds, and he wants hundreds of thousands, up to a couple 100,000, so-called refugees from jihadist hotbeds? What's that all about? So those are a few questions. Also, let me share from the Washington Times. This is a story. What is the date on this story? Last Monday, expanding gun background checks to include all sales, the crux of Barack Obama's new executive gun control push, would not have stopped the firearms from reaching the hands of recent mass shooters, according to studies and experts who have looked at the issues. And we know the Newtown guns were purchased legally. They belong to the mother. We know the San Bernardino guns were purchased by this goofball friend who was able to pass a background check. But of course, he was a straw purchaser. That's already illegal, but he lied about it. Some of these cases of people being able to buy guns are because the government screwed up. You remember Mr. Cho back in 2007 at Virginia Tech? He had been adjudicated mentally ill by a judge, but he was still able to buy a gun because his records were never sent to the federal database. So we have a lot of these sort of things, none of which would be addressed by Obama's proposals. But of course, they're not about anything other than control, right? They're not about gun control. They're about you control, right? When I come back, I'm going to tell you how many foreigners have been involved in terrorism and have been arrested on American soil since 2014 as we prepare to welcome all these refugees, and as Michelle Obama prepares to invite refugees, or at least one of these Syrian refugees, to be a guest at the State of the Union. Be right back.
This week's episode, Trouble on Rock Hill.
Ain't nothing like running up and down Rock Hill. Hey, let's move this rock. Whoa! Sassy, Johnny's stuck under that rock. Yeah, girl, go tell Mr. Gunderson to bring his truck. You'll tell him, but only after you dispel a stereotype associated with shelter pets? People think shelter pets come with lots of initial veterinary costs?
It's dusty under here.
But in reality, most shelter pets have been vaccinated, neutered, and microchipped in case they get lost.
My pants ripped.
Sassy, Johnny needs help. What Johnny really needs is more discipline and better parental supervision. You use big words, Sassy.
Still under the rock.
Sassy is brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org. Remember, adopt.
They came from every corner of the country. From small towns and big cities. But they all shared one thing in common. They belonged to a family called Marines. A tough and determined few, dedicated to protecting everything we hold sacred. And still they come. Celebrate the history of those proud few who have earned the title Marine.
So, I'm a dog, and I just got adopted by this new human guy, and I'm starting to wonder how he got along without me. I mean, okay, something as simple as walking around the block. He's got this leash thing, and he puts me on one end and him on the other, and I'm just taking him around. I think he's afraid of getting lost. Without that leash and me guiding him along, I don't think he'd find his way back home. But it's kind of cute.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
The leftist liberal agenda.
I think the vast majority of liberals are well-intentioned but misguided. They're like children who have the luxury of believing in the political equivalent of the tooth fairy. They need some tough love. They need a big old healthy dose of information and common sense. And after they get it, the smart ones will become conservative.
It is said that Castro was making a speech to a large assembly. And he was going on at great length, and then a voice out in the crowd said, "Peanuts, popcorn, Cracker Jack." And he went on speaking, and again the voice said, "Peanuts, popcorn, Cracker Jack." And about the fourth time this happened, he stopped in his regular speech, and he said, the next time he says that, he says, "I'm going to find out who he is and kick him all the way to Miami." And everybody in the crowd said, "Peanuts, popcorn, Cracker Jack."
At highway speeds, the average text takes your eyes off the road for about 5 seconds. That's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop texts, stopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
We all know Goodwill. But did you know when you donate stuff to Goodwill, you help provide job training for people right here in your community? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Informed America Radio.
Ms. O'Brien.
Brian.
She's about
as hard right and at least, if not more, articulate than Limbaugh.
Well, she's popular. There's something about this bitch that's really spectacular. Yeah, for a popular girl, she's pretty popular. She's about being sensible.
Well, she can make them talk about themselves, the way it says girls should do in those teenage columns.
Know-it-all, bitch.
Basically, I'm in love with her. Enough! Wah!
I gave my love a cherry that had no stone. I gave my love a chicken that had no bones. I gave my love a story that had no end. I give.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's that hippie guy from Portland we were talking about in the first hour of today's edition of the Teri O'Brien Show. If you missed that, you guys can always listen on demand 24/7 at terryobrien.com. Or on Spreaker. You can get the app for your smartphone or tablet and listen on the go. And I appreciate all of you doing that, and I appreciate all your comments at terryobrien.com. And if you're new to the program, we're here every Sunday, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern. And you can listen live where I, your humble host, broadcasting from my secured bunker in an undisclosed location in flyover country, bring you stories you're not going to hear anywhere else. So thanks so much. And let me give a special shout out again to those of you who swing by, drop a few pennies in the tip jar. That is really the only reason we're still here. Because, it's expensive to buy equipment, it's expensive to buy bandwidth, all these things. So you guys make it possible for that to continue to happen. Okay, so now, as we prepare to watch the State of the Union, and of course, yes, I will watch, so you don't have to. I'll be there. And if you want to join me, of course, you need to follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/Teri, Teri. O'Brien, just like my cousin Conan. You need to follow me there. And if you do that, you'll hear all my tweets. And by the way, you get a lot of breaking news. You should definitely be following me on Twitter. But if you do during State of the Union, I'll be tweeting about that. And there's a likelihood that there'll be a chat room that night. So check in at terryobrien.com or sign up for the newsletter. It's free. We won't spam you, but if there's any news, we will definitely send it your way. So thanks for that. Now, the Washington Free Beacon reported on Friday a story by Adam Credo. Headline, Disclosure, another 41 foreign-born individuals snagged on terrorism charges. So as we prepare to watch the State of the Union and hear Barack Obama make a big pitch for these thousands or hundreds of thousands of refugees from jihadist hotbeds that he wants to bring into the country, and he is going to have one Syrian refugee as a guest in the first Klingons box up there, we need to think about this. So following the discovery of a terrorist cell in Texas allegedly operated by an Iraqi who entered the U.S. as a refugee, the Washington Free Beacon has learned of an additional 41 individuals who have been implicated in terrorist plots in the U.S. since 2014, bringing the total number of terrorists discovered since that time to 113, according to information provided by congressional sources. Since August, however, the Obama administration has stonewalled congressional efforts to obtain more detailed immigration histories of these individuals, prompting frustration on Capitol Hill and accusations that the administration is covering up these histories to avoid exposing flaws in the U.S. screening process. Gee, you think there's any flaws in the screening process when you have somebody like Tashfeen Malik coming in the country? The disclosure of these additional 41 individuals linked to terror operations, many already identified as immigrants, others' immigration history shrouded in secrecy, has stoked further concerns about flaws in the U.S. screening process and is likely to prompt further congressional inquiry into Obama administration officials' efforts to withhold details about these suspects, sources said. So basically, they're telling us, as they always do, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. We have the San Bernardino thing. Then we have last week these two individuals, one in California, one in Texas, both refugees from Iraq, one of whom lied on his application. We'll get into that in a second. Then we also have that dirtbag who tried to assassinate the cop in Philadelphia, who said he's pledging his allegiance to ISIS. But let's see. Let's continue. As the number of legal immigrants connected to terrorism continues to grow, and let me pause there, it's only going to continue to grow more because as we import more Muslims from jihadist hotbeds, we're going to, by sheer numbers, even if only a tiny percentage of these people support a terrorist jihadist agenda, we're going to have more of them in the country. So as these numbers continue to grow, the Obama administration has sought to quash congressional inquiries and rally its allies behind an effort to fund efforts to boost the number of immigrants and refugees from the Middle East. Many of these immigrants have been caught by authorities planning terrorist attacks on American soil, while others were found to be involved in efforts to provide funding and material to ISIS, according to an internal list of migrant terrorists codified by congressional sources and viewed by the Washington Free Beacon. Quote, a growing number of foreign-born terrorists are being identified operating within the United States, and yet the administration will not provide any information about their immigrant histories, said one senior congressional source apprised of the issue. And one can only imagine that for every identified terrorist, there are many more individuals around them who are radicalized, extreme, or otherwise detracting from American society in ways beyond the threat of terrorism alone. As congressional calls for increasing screening methods go mostly ignored, local authorities are dealing with an uptick in terror-related crimes committed by legal immigrants. And here we go with the two arrested last week. On Thursday, the Justice Department accused two Iraqi refugees legally in the U.S. of conspiring to provide support to ISIS. Omar Faraj Saeed al-Hardan, a 24-year-old Palestinian born an Iraqi refugee who had been living in Texas, was charged with aiding ISIS. The man had been granted legal permanent resident status in Houston in 2011, although it was later determined that he, quote, swore untruthfully on his formal application when applying to become a naturalized U.S. citizen, unquote, according to the Justice Department. And this would be the same Justice Department when there were corpses strewn all over San Bernardino that said it would be a great opportunity to root out any Islamophobia. Right? Isn't that what the Attorney General said? Something like that. But let's read on. Let's see. He lied. Okay. Aous Mohammed Younis al-Jayab, also Palestinian-born Iraqi, allegedly, quote, traveled overseas to fight alongside terrorist organizations and lied to U.S. authorities about his activities, unquote, according to the Justice Department. Of course, then we have this wacko who ambushed and tried to murder the police officer. It's interesting, in this Beacon story, Senator Mark Kirk, a Republican of Illinois, is quoted in here. And he says the terrorism-related arrests of two or more Iraqi refugees on American soil once again proves our screening process is weak and needs to be updated. But I don't see him as having stood up at all to Barack Obama about this whole refugee resettlement. And as you guys well know, that omnibus funding bill that came out last month, Paul Ryan's bill, funded virtually everything Obama wanted. Not only sanctuary cities, but all the refugee resettlement. Now, I will say over 30 governors have stood up and said they want to pause on this refugee resettlement. And I certainly can't blame them. Even if these folks were not from jihadist hotbeds, let's stop and think about this. The burdens on local law enforcement, on local school districts, all of these things by bringing in all these poorly educated, low-skilled people, which is, of course, what the Democrats want, a permanent underclass that will be dependent on government. That is their bread and butter. So I don't know about you, but I think it's time to maybe contact your representative again and suggest that now that this omnibus is passed, maybe we need to revisit this whole issue of these refugees. Well, I'm sorry to say that this is the time when the program is nearly over. If you are a premium member, that is, if you make a monthly gift to the show or contribute at least $100 a year to help us keep the lights on, you will get special show notes with a commercial-free version of the show that we send out. But all of you can go to terryobrien.com and see the show notes and see all the articles we post here. Thanks, guys, again for all your prayers and encouragement as I recover from my recent encounter with the healthcare system. I look forward to getting stronger every week. I'm not going away. You know that. I'm just like that gun-toting granny. I'm not going away. Anyway, I'll be back here. I'll be at terryobrien.com all during the week, as always. And remember to check there every day where the show never ends. Start your Amazon shopping there. And remember, stay tough, guys, because as I always remind you, only the strong can stay free.